Good afternoon. Welcome to our midday today. Let me start by announcing the agenda of President von der Leyen for this week, since we did not do it on Friday. So as part of today's agenda, the President will travel to Stockholm to participate in a working dinner with business leaders hosted by Ulf Kristersson, Prime Minister of Sweden. Tomorrow, still in Stockholm, President von der Leyen will participate in a meeting with the Nordic leaders and the Secretary General of the Nordic Council of Ministers. She will also meet with Andreas Norlén, Speaker of the Riksdag, the Swedish Parliament. Lastly, the President will deliver a speech at the 77th session of the Nordic Council. That's for the agenda of the President von der Leyen this week. Maintenant, en français, je me permets de vous rappeler que les ministres de l'Agriculture se réunissent aujourd'hui au Luxembourg pour une réunion du Conseil dans sa configuration agriculture et pêche. Les commissaires Hansen et Cadiz représentent la Commission à cette réunion. Les ministres essaieront de parvenir à un accord politique sur les possibilités de pêche pour l'année prochaine en mer Baltique. Ils tiendront également un débat d'orientation sur la proposition relative à la politique agricole commune après 2027 en ce qui concerne l'architecture écologique. Enfin, ils échangeront sur la situation du marché, en particulier à la suite de l'invasion de l'Ukraine. Une conférence de presse avec le commissaire Hansen aura lieu assez tard ce soir, vers 9h15, d'après nos dernières informations. Donc, je vous invite, comme d'habitude, à réserver vos questions sur ces sujets, l'agriculture et la pêche, en particulier pour cette conférence de presse dédiée. Voilà pour nos annonces. Nous sommes prêts à prendre vos questions et je vais juste vous demander de prendre d'abord les questions qui seraient prises par Olof, parce qu'il va devoir partir assez tôt. Donc, s'il y a des questions pour Olof, on va commencer par cela. Razia.
Thank you. I just wanted to get some clarity because I think different media, including myself, are perhaps reporting this wrong. So I just want to clarify. We're expecting in-person and virtual high-level technical meetings between Chinese and EU officials, but who exactly are we expecting the Chinese Commerce Minister? And linked to this issue of rare export controls, it seems that things are developing in a positive way for the US and China, which I would like to know if that bodes well for the EU as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Razia. So let me start with the last, as regards the developments in discussions between the US and China on this. Of course, we're following these developments closely. Of course, we are, analysing what the impact of that would be. But we're not going to comment on it in a wider sense because that's a bilateral engagement between the US and China. What I can say from the European Union perspective is that our analysis of this problem isn't new. And we are engaging in our sovereign capacity as the European Union to try and address the global problem that China has caused with its export restrictions and other measures. So, concerning the engagement that will happen between the EU and China this week. So, what Commissioner Šefčovič confirmed last week was that Minister Wang, the Chinese Commerce Minister, had agreed that there would be high-level engagement at technical level this week. I can confirm that that is happening. First meetings are happening already today to kind of to lay the ground by video conference, and a high-level technical Chinese delegation will arrive in Brussels on Thursday to engage on these topics in a very substantive way. I think it is worthwhile for me to recall from this podium why we are taking these actions. We are taking these actions because we believe that China needs to act as a responsible partner in this sense. We already agreed in our at the EU-China summit in July that we would try to address these challenges via an export control dialogue. That is the framework, if you like, in which this week's meetings are taking place, but they are taking place in an accelerated and in a more intensive manner. The other thing to keep in mind here is that these meetings happening this week are to address the short-term challenge. But we've said from here before, and it can't be recalled enough, that this problem isn't new. If I may speak on behalf of the President, Paula, President von der Leyen was talking about de-risking going back years. I would invite you all to reread her speech on China relations from March 2023, which really set the scene in terms of this work that's now happening. So there's short-term, medium, long-term. Short-term, we need to address this challenge around access to critical raw materials. We are engaging with China in that capacity this week with the view to finding a constructive solution. Separately, the wider work has been going on also for years to de-risk. So what does that mean? That means at home we have brought forward a number of initiatives that will strengthen our capacity within the internal market. But in an international sense, in a trade partnership sense, it means diversification. That work has also been going on for several years, where we're engaging within the context of our free trade agreements, but also separately through bespoke, dedicated agreements on critical raw materials, minerals, etc., to try and have as wide as possible a range of partners with whom we can have a stable trade relations for these critical materials. So there's the short-term work, there's the medium and long-term work. This is an effort for the Commission on behalf of the EU. It's also an effort that needs to be fully taken on board by our Member States, by our industry. It's an all-hands-on-deck approach, and we expect you will see the fruits of that in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you, Olaf, for reminding us really the wider context and the work that has been done in this context. And in this context, let me also draw your attention to the President's speech at the Berlin Global Dialogue this weekend on Saturday, where precisely on the subject of critical raw materials, she announced a new initiative, the Resource EU, which will allow precisely ensuring access to the critical raw materials, to boosting our domestic production, joint purchasing, stockpiling, recycling and expanding our partnerships. So in parallel to our outreach with the Chinese counterparts, we're doing our work also domestically, as Olaf explained, in terms of diversification. Other questions to Olaf? Yes.
Hey Olaf, Angela Scugins here from TVP World. It's on the Resource EU plan, which was announced on Saturday. Do we know when this is expected to start? And von der Leyen listed a range of countries that she wants to work with. What minerals in particular does the EU want from countries such as Australia, Ukraine and Greenland? Thank you.
Look, we can get into the technicalities as the idea develops, but I can say, speaking on behalf of also of Thomas, the intention with the Resource EU proposal is to come forward with a concrete initiative before the end of the year. And for the rest, in terms of how we will engage with different trade partners around the world on specific mineral product categories and what structures will be put in place to access those, to build stable partnerships, we'll come back to that at a future date, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Carl, please.
Carl for Les Echos, same topic. I would like to know what you hear from European businesses. Which sectors are the most concerned about possible shortages in the coming weeks? My understanding is that some companies have only 1 to 3 weeks of reserves. And is there a contingency plan in case some of very large European plants must stop production?
Thanks for the questions, Carl. But I mean, your first question should be directed to EU industry. I'm not going to answer on behalf of them. We're very well aware due to our intensive ongoing contact with EU industry, what their concerns are. That's precisely why we are engaging in such a structured and forceful way, accelerating talks with our Chinese partners this week to try and address this issue. So I'm not going to talk about Plan B and Plan C when we're still working on Plan A.
Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you. Annabelle from German Public Radio. I also have a question on the Resource EU plan. I know we don't know that many details yet, but I was wondering how this is going to complement or add to the Critical Raw Materials Act. Maybe you can explain a bit what's the idea between having those two now.
Thanks very much. I do think it is at the early stage. Of course, they will, the idea is for these different initiatives to work in harmony, to complement each other. If you don't mind, I will kick that over to my dear colleague Thomas, who will come to the podium after I chase off to the airport. So, if I may ask you all, any other questions that I can answer before I throw on my coat?
Yeah, we'll come back to you. Yes, I see a question there. Still to Thomas, to Olaf.
Thanks very much. It's Edith Hancock with Dow Jones. Just very quickly, I'm sorry if you said it, but I don't think I caught it if you did. Could you be more specific on who in this high-level delegation is coming to Brussels and who on the EU side is going to be engaging in these talks? Thank you.
High-level technical people on the European Commission side and the China side. I don't need to name them. I ain't going to name them. You just need to trust me that they're high-level, that they're technical, and that they're working hard to get the job done.
Yes. Jarno.
Hi, Thomas Mullen-Nielsen at Euractiv. Sorry, but Commissioner Šefčovič said last week, or at least he heavily suggested that Minister Wang would be coming. He said he proposed this invitation for a high-level a delegation of Chinese officials to come to Brussels, and Minister Wang had accepted that invitation. Does that mean that Minister Wang accepted the invitation for this high-level group to come, or is Minister Wang going to come? That's the question. Thanks.
Dear Tom, I have clarified this to you and many colleagues many times since last Friday. It's the former. So, Commissioner Šefčovič announced that Minister Wang had accepted that high-level technical experts, who shall remain unnamed, are coming to Brussels to engage on this issue in an accelerated manner in order that we can find a solution for EU industry.
Okay. Any other questions to Olaf? No, so you can head off, Olaf. Thank you very much. Now we bring in Thomas to go into more details into the why now and the Critical Raw Materials Act and the timing of the announcement, the timely announcement by the President, who is for quite some time putting a lot of emphasis and leadership on the subject of the critical raw materials. Thomas.
Thank you, Paula. Thanks for the question. And indeed, Olaf mentioned it. So in March 2023, we already came up with the Critical Raw Materials Act. Why did we propose it? Precisely to ensure the secure and sustainable access to raw materials. This is, of course, essential for our strategic autonomy, but, of course, also for our economic security. Since then, we have clear targets. Since the Critical Raw Materials Act, by 2030, we want to extract 10%, process 40%, and recycle 25% of what we consume annually. We have strategic projects that are running. We have 60 that have also been identified. Now, we have a clear reality today, and this is Europe's economic security. This is why now we need to also accelerate this work. We need to move faster. We need to be even more efficient. And it's in this context, to support the Critical Raw Materials Act and in this general economic security context, that the President came in, indeed, with this new initiative, on which more information will follow in due course. But again, I can reassure you, this is complementary to what has already been done in this sector.
Other questions to Thomas? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, Stefano Bocello for Euractiv. I'd like to understand a little bit better on this Resource EU announcement. Is this going to be just a communication, or you expect some legal proposal as well? And next to this, on the stockpiling, especially, do you plan to mandate a legal obligation to stockpile critical raw materials? What is the situation as of now, and what is needed? Thanks.
Thank you, Stefano. These are very good points on which we will be working. Now, communication or not, today in front of you I'm speaking of an initiative. Let's see which form it will take. This needs to be now still, of course, discussed within the Commission. We have experts working on that. So now, of course, you have a political announcement, you have a political engagement to move quicker, to move faster, to move further than what has already been done. Again, for Europe's economic security, this is of vital importance. We will now, not from this podium today, Stefano, prejudge on how this and which form it will take. This is a bit too premature at this stage, but I can promise that we'll work on that, yes.
Yes, you have a follow-up, Stefano?
Yeah, I do. Thanks. So on the stockpiling, can you just confirm that at the moment, as of today, there is no stockpiling obligation for critical raw material whatsoever? And second, on joint purchasing, the Critical Raw Materials Act already foresee a joint purchasing mechanism. We have the gas joint purchasing mechanism as well. Like, what is the situation as of today? And that's the main question. Sorry.
Yes, indeed, there's no obligation at EU level for stockpiling of critical raw materials. And you're right, there's already a reference in the existing platform, which was used for energy purposes, to explore the possibilities of using it also for critical raw materials. So that's indeed a well-spotted hook, Stefano. Yes, and Thomas?
Maybe I can just add one point that we also announced, of course, also a public consultation for the Critical Raw Materials Center to coordinate both stockpiling and joint purchasing. You have been referring to these, so of course work is also ongoing on that front.
And final follow-up on this one?
Yeah, sorry, just about the joint purchasing. Is the platform already up and running, or you need like a new IT platform for joint purchasing of critical raw materials? Thanks.
This is something which will be announced still this year.
It's part, indeed, of what will be the broader initiative. Yes, please.
Hi, Philippe Bedo-Sylvin from the Norwegian media Energi og Klima. I'm wondering what is the tie to the Critical Raw Materials Center that was announced in the work program for 2026?
Need to check the the Commission work program in case you have it in front of your eyes.
Yes.
Thomas?
I don't have it in front of my eyes, but I would refer back to the work program. So I will get back to you bilaterally if I have more info or more precise timeline on this.
Yeah, I can't remember either if we had any specific quarter foreseen for this initiative in the 2026 Commission work program, which was adopted last week. Other questions to Thomas? Oui, Carol.
Yes, Sim Tobik, I just would like to clarify. So my understanding is that the Commission is working on a new mechanism for joint purchases. I think it is inspired by a Japanese mechanism that is already ongoing. I just wonder whether the Commission is also working on a mechanism for a joint stockpiling. Like, could there be like a place somewhere, like a center, where these materials could be stockpiled for the use of everyone?
These are all good, very good questions, which will be part also of the consultation that Thomas just referred to. And on that basis, we'll see how to take it forward. As said, also, let's see if it will be in the form of a communication, in the form of legal proposal, to go about what the President said on Saturday in Berlin, which is really about exploring possibilities for joint purchasing, for stockpiling, for diversifying critical raw materials supplies. Yes, Thomas.
Just add on this, because we also have very efficient colleagues sitting in front of us. So we have some additional details. The Critical Raw Materials Center will be indeed a new legislative proposal, which was initially foreseen for Q4 2026. But according to the new Commission's work program, and the importance of this for Europe's economic security has been advanced to Q2 next year, Q2 2026.
Thank you to our excellent press officers who give us information in real time as we need it. Thank you. Other questions to Thomas? But still to Thomas. Yes, Razia, then go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, because we had on Friday the Commission's preliminary findings on TikTok and Meta. And I just wanted to come back on a point that TikTok had said, that they urge regulators to provide clarity on the obligations regarding the Digital Services Act and the GDPR data protection regulation should be reconciled. So I just wanted to see what the reaction was to that point. And I also just wanted to make a very quick point that we often keep having Friday announcements and then no opportunity to ask questions, and then it can be too late for coverage for some of us. So if I could just make a special remark that could we get preliminary findings and a promise of a midday? Because as you said, they're excellent press officers. We want to see you up there and answering our questions. Thank you.
Hi, Razia, and we are also always happy to see you, and we see you practically every day of the week. And we're very glad with that. Now, when you have an announcement, which is indeed of interest for many of you, as we did on Friday, obviously, if exceptionally we do not have a midday, do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll make our very best to provide you with all the information you need to do your reporting. But more on this now live and on the record. Thomas.
Thank you, Raz. So indeed, we adopted important decisions on Friday regarding both TikTok and Meta. When it comes to TikTok and Meta, let me just briefly clarify again. It's about providing effective access for researchers to public data on these two providers' services, so including Facebook and Instagram for Meta. This is not efficiently working today. So, of course, we took note of the comments from TikTok. But as a response to preliminary findings, we expect right of defense that is being exercised in writing to the Commission, not via public statements, because we are always open to exchange with platforms, including with TikTok, and to provide additional explanations on what the DSA is precisely requesting from platforms. But we believe that the DSA is, of course, very clear also on potential overlaps with GDPR. So our position on that front is extremely clear.
Thank you, Thomas. Other questions to Thomas? Does not seem to be the case. Then we change topic. Nureddin.
Thank you, Paula. I have a few questions to Anwar on Gaza, on West Bank, and on the International Court of Justice advisory opinion. I would like to know if in the briefing we had before the latest fact in Luxembourg, I understood, and some of us understood, that the European Union is looking to the possibility to participate in the process in Gaza of disarming Hamas, decommissioning arms, etc., and reintegrating of the former fighters. More generally, how the European Union is preparing its own participation, as the Union has not an army, do not have an army, how the European Union is preparing its participation in the international stabilization process in Gaza. As we speak today, is the Rafah mission is already deployed and on the ground, or still not yet? Do you have an idea about the discussion on the police mission, which is training the Palestinian police in the West Bank, the possibility to extend this mission to Gaza? And on the West Bank, the campaign, a systematic campaign of violence by the settlers, protected by the occupation army against the Palestinian, is becoming very clear, a cleansing systematic campaign against the Palestinian. European Union has leverage to make Israel understand that this is not acceptable, this is not illegal. When the European Union use the leverage at its disposal to stop or to convince Israel to stop this kind of violence? And do you have any comment of the International Court of Justice advisory opinion, which said many interesting things, among that the allegation made by Israel against UNRWA are not, the court did not find any substantial evidence about that, and mainly the court is asking Israel to allow the UN agencies and UNRWA particularly. But the problem is that the Israeli government said, this is the Foreign Affairs Minister, that we will not let UNRWA get in, even if, despite the ICG opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, Anwar.
Thank you, Nordin, for all these questions. I'll try to take them one by one and to unpack these angles. Let me start with the ICJ that came quite prominently in your intervention. I will recall here that advisory opinions are legally non-binding but carry legal authority as the court interprets obligations binding on Israel. We take good note of the advisory opinion in question. And as such, Israel should comply with the ICJ advisory opinion in its integrity, in line with the letter and spirit of the international legal obligations the court has identified as binding on Israel, in particular the Fourth Geneva Convention. We also, in particular, as EU, call on Israel to respect its obligation under international humanitarian and human rights law vis-à-vis the Palestinian population in the occupied Palestinian territory, and particularly the Gaza Strip. Now, you mentioned the West Bank. I will here go in detail in terms of the Knesset's preliminary approval of two draft bills proposed by the right-wing opposition related to the West Bank and to Mahale Adumim settlement. The EU has a long-standing position of non-recognition of Israel's sovereignty over the territories occupied by Israel since June 1967, in line with relevant UN Security Council resolutions. We recall here that annexation is illegal under international law. Therefore, any concrete steps taken towards that end would be considered a breach of international law. Further on, you raised 2 points, ISF and then our measures, if I'm not mistaken. In terms of the day after and the international stabilization force that you have raised, the EU is ready to play its full role, as we have here reiterated on so many instances, and contribute to the implementation of the Gaza peace plan, in particular in terms of the security arrangements through our two security and defense missions, civilian missions, EUBAM Rafah on the one hand and EUPOL COPS on the other hand. On the latter, EUPOL COPS that you have raised, discussions are ongoing regarding what more we can do, in particular in terms of a possible enhanced training activity. And to be fully comprehensive, you mentioned leverage. We do have leverage, and this is why we have put the measures that we have taken forward as a result to the unacceptable situation in Gaza, but also together with the actions that we have seen in the West Bank that are undermining the two-state solution, including the decision of the Israeli authorities to advance the settlement plan in the so-called E1 area of the West Bank. Again, these measures are not against Israel nor the Israeli people, but to urge the Israeli government to change course of action in Gaza and also in the West Bank, and these measures remain on the table as our principals have already outlined, together the High Representative and also the President of the European Commission, because this is part of our engagement vis-à-vis Israel, and I'll stop there.
Okay, the questions to Anwar. Yes.
Thank you. Evaldas Lamanauskas, Lithuania Radio and Television. Not about Middle East, about balloons in Lithuania-Belarusian border. Can I? So,
even though, let me see, because it will not be for Anwar, the balloons in Lithuania. So just give me a second to see if there are other questions for Anwar, and I think there are, if not in the room, online. In the room? Not in the room. Tommaso Galavotti, no? You just put down your hand, so it's not for Anwar, I guess. No. Then we have Catherine Feore. Is it for Anwar?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So, Anwar, you mentioned that the EU has leverage with Israel, and on Thursday, WHO reported that there were massive medical needs in Gaza, and that one of the things that they wanted to do is to try and have access for medical evacuations to the West Bank and to East Jerusalem. Is this something where you would have leverage, where the EU is trying to help those people get the medical care that they need? Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, we do have leverage. This is why our measures remain on the table. And as the High Representative said it herself at the FAC, we don't take them off the table because the situation is fragile. What do we need to see on the ground? Several things. To start with, the improvement of humanitarian aid reaching Gaza, as you have rightly pointed to. Then, also Palestinian revenues to be given to Palestine, together with seeing journalists and humanitarian aid workers getting in the Gaza Strip, and as well international NGOs registration be unrestricted. So these are elements that we need to see on the ground to have a change of course of situation on the ground.
Thank you, Anwar. Mose. I think still to Anwar.
Yes, thank you very much, Paula. Musa, Brussels Times. I have a few follow-up questions to Nouri's questions. We know that the ceasefire in Gaza is very fragile, and so I would like to ask what exactly can EU do in order to make both sides, both Hamas and Israel, to comply with their commitments during the first phase of Trump's peace plan. And talking about the violence on the West Bank, we know from the Foreign Affairs Council meeting last week, Nouri referred to that, the sanctions package proposed by the Commission is still on the table. I would like to ask if the Commission is considering to activate, for example, the restricted measures which were proposed against extremist ministers which are supporting this unprecedented violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Mose.
Thank you, Mose. Look, you mentioned restrictive measures. They are with the Council, and this is where they are at this stage. Now, in terms of what we can do, I will again here reiterate the full scope and depth of our toolbox that we are ready to activate, looking at our instruments in terms of the day after in Gaza, because we have a expertise in terms of post-conflict in these kind of situations. One, in terms of CSDP, as I said, and as announced by the High Representative, we are redeploying our civilian border assistance mission, EUBAM Rafah, to the Rafah crossing point, again, when the parties agreed to reopen that crossing point. In terms of EU-POL COPS, as I said, discussions are ongoing in terms of what we can do more, but let's again recall here that this mission aims at supporting the Palestine civil police and wider justice institutions, which play a key role in terms of improving the security of the Palestinian population in terms of concrete and tangible way, together with reinforcing the rule of law. So that's in terms of our CSDP instruments. Then, reconstruction-wise, you will recall this is point 10 and 11 of the President Trump peace plan, with the instrument announced by the President at the State of the Union that will be instrumental for reconstruction. Then, on humanitarian, in light of our aid that has been reaching more than 500 million euros since October 2023, and the newly established Palestine Donor Group that will catalyze political support for a viable future governance of the Palestinian state, this will also be instrumental to the implementation of the reform agenda of the Palestinian Authority, because we need a strong and reformed Palestinian Authority to be able to then also take part of the governance also in light and ahead of the horizon of the two-state solution. On financial assistance, since we mentioned our wide toolbox, let's also speak numbers here. With our 1.6 billion euros of support to the Palestinian Authority, which is a vital support to keep the Palestinian Authority afloat and thereby also the two-state solution alive. And I will end with the political efforts in terms of the diplomatic engagement that the High Representative herself is leading on the two-state solution, points 19 and 20 of the peace plan with the Global Alliance for the implementation of the two-state solution, looking back again at the efforts that took place in New York together with our Saudi partners. So all in all, this is a multifaceted contribution to the multifaceted needs that are acute in Gaza, and we are ready to activate all these instruments.
Thank you, Anwar. Nuruddin, very shortly, because you had a number of questions at the beginning, and I see still a number of topics to cover. Go ahead.
Anwar, you will explain that the European Union is ready to participate in the security arrangement and the reconstruction or the early recovery, etc., in Gaza. Why in your view, in the European Union conclusions, summit conclusions, this availability of the European Union possible participation in the security arrangement, it was not mentioned in the European Union summit conclusion? Is that because the discussions are ongoing, it's not yet mature, but the principle is already there? Thank you.
Thank you, Nordin. European Council conclusions are our highest level in terms of agreed language, which means macro level. I'm not at that level yet, so that's why we can give you micro details, but I will refer here to what the EU conclusions said last week, in the sense that the EU will make full use of its missions, EUBAM Rafah and EUPOL COPS, in terms of the EU being ready to contribute to Gaza stabilization on the ground. And in that framework, this is another information that I can give you, that indeed discussions are taking place in terms of seeing the extent to which we can also do more with EUPOL COPS. So we'll bring added value to the UCO language as the added value of the midday, right?
Yeah, and as President von der Leyen said it herself, we are ready and willing to do our share, both in terms of the reconstruction and also in terms of continuing to support the Palestinian Authority, and therefore also the announcement by the President reiterated last week when she met with the President of Egypt, also regarding the Palestinian donor group, where we are also putting our efforts in that regard. Other questions to Anwar? No. So now we can come to the question regarding the balloons on the Lithuanian space. Go ahead, if you can take it.
Evaldas Labanauskas, Lithuanian Radio and Television. So, first question, what does Commission know, and does Commission think it is hybrid attack against Lithuania with those balloons, or just smuggling operation for cigarettes? And another question, have Lithuania already asked some help from Commission, for example, from Frontex or from diplomatic service to make some diplomatic steps against Belarus? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Anna Kaiser.
Many thanks. We are aware of these incidents and of these air balloons, and the fact that it has resulted in the closure of airport. And as always, the closure of airports and the airspace is the competence of the member state. In this case, as in all of the previous cases of drones, for example, there have been several across the EU and EU airports. We are in close contact with the national authorities in this case, as well as EASA and the relevant authorities who will be able to look into this. But I do not have information to give from here as regards possible causes or possible other modes of cooperation, but we are very much aware of this, and we do stay in contact with the Lithuanian authorities on this.
Do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. So you don't have information that this hybrid attack, if I'm correct. And another question, yesterday President of Lithuania, Gitanas Nausėda, also said that Lithuania should consider to temporarily stop Kaliningrad transit. I'm not asking to comments, as you don't do it, but how it is possible? Is it possible for Lithuania alone to stop Kaliningrad transit? Because, as I know, there are not only Lithuanian-Russia agreement regarding transit, but it's also EU and Russia agreement regarding Kaliningrad transit. Thank you.
On your first question on the nature of these attacks, my colleague Toma might be able to look further. As regards transit, are we talking about air or road or everything?
I think he had in his mind train transit. Yes.
In this case, I will need to look into the details and get back to you on as regards rail traffic and transit particularly. Okay, we'll look into that and get back.
Okay, other questions to Anna-Kaisa? Yes, please.
Yes, hello. I hope it's for Anna-Kaisa. I would like to know, last week the US proposed sanctions against 2 Russian oil companies. I would like to know if this is impacting EU countries or not.
It is partly me and partly not, but from the point of view of energy, what I can say is, of course, that we are very closely monitoring the security of supply situation of all our member states, as well as those countries in the region, candidate countries, for example, that do have or who are impacted by these decisions. And we do, of course, call on all our member states, as everybody else who is concerned, to start aligning with our repower objectives to diversify their sources. We're supporting them in this, but for the time being, we're not seeing any particular issues especially for the security supply situation. We have our stock legislation in place to have for all our member states to have 90 days of oil stocks, and we are in close contact as regards last week's decision, because obviously it might have an impact, and we want to make sure that our member states are prepared, that they have a plan. There are other sources of supply, and we are here to support them with this.
Other questions to Anna-Kaisa? Yep.
Hello, Kieran Sunderland for Context. It's the same topic. I would like to ask you, can the Commission assist with the transfer of ownership of the subsidiaries of Lukoil in Eastern Europe? Is it in a position to do this, to comply with the US sanctions on Lukoil?
This would be for my colleague. This is not an energy issue as such, but we can look and get back to you.
Nikolaus.
Just 2 quick questions. Can you update us on the state of the infringement procedure against Romania for intervening in its energy markets? I think you launched an infringement procedure last year. And secondly, can the Commission confirm the receipt of the German decision not to split its bidding zone, which would then trigger the internal European Commission process to review the German decision and to decide on a way forward? And can you confirm to us whether that time period has started?
On the infringement, I don't think we have anything to update at this stage. It's an ongoing ongoing case, and as regards the German bidding zone, we'll also have to check whether this information has reached us.
Okay, so we'll get back to you, Nikolaos. Other questions to Anna-Kaisa? Anna-Kaisa still? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I think it's Anna-Kaisa. It's in relation to competition policy in the energy sector.
No, but the word competition is, I'm out.
Go ahead, but you can ask the question since we're changing actors here on the podium. So go ahead for your question.
Thank you. So last week, the German energy company Einkommen 5 lodged a complaint with the Commission about German government plans to subsidise the construction of new gas power plants. I would like to receive the Commission's response to this complaint, or a comment on it. And also, can you tell us if the German government has notified the Commission yet of their gas power subsidy scheme?
Okay. Let's see if we have already an answer for you, because if we did not receive the notification, then of course there's not much we can say about that. Looking at my colleagues who are... Okay, let us... yeah, okay, good. Ariana, still stepping in for competition matters.
Between me and Thomas, and every day we spontaneously decide who follows, but we both follow at this moment. So what we can say is that we are in constructive contact with the German authorities on this matter, and the process is ongoing. Let me recall also that the sectorial legislation of the European Union and state aid rules in particular enable the design of open and competitive measures to ensure security of supply, strengthening the energy union, and maintaining a level playing field, of course, in the single market, which, as you know, is our objective with our state aid rules, of course, at the lowest cost possible. We are assisting Germany in developing their ideas and designing measures that comply with European rules, and that will ultimately avoid any possible distortion of competition and trade between member states. Also, of course, delivering the best value possible for our citizens. So at this stage, we can just say that we're working with the German authorities, and this process is ongoing. So, of course, we're not going to comment any further on it.
Good, thank you. To Ariana, if it concerns competition issues or simplification. No other questions to Ariana? Okay, thank you. Ariana, then I've been having a... Okay, I see a question already for a long time from Tommaso, before I come back to the room. And while we change topic, Tommaso Galavotti, go ahead.
Yes, many thanks. Good afternoon, Tommaso Galavotti, from Italy. It's just a question about the reparations loan to Ukraine, because I've noticed that the president kept talking about this possibility in her intervention after the European Council, while the European Council conclusions talk just of options at the plural. So I wonder if the Commission is considering just that possibility of using the Russian assets, or also other possibilities which might be intergovernmental debt to raise funds to help Ukraine. Many thanks.
Thank you, Tomas. And before giving the floor to Balázs, because you mentioned the European Council conclusions, Tomas, and you mentioned also the President. So worth recalling, first of all, that in the European Council conclusions of last Thursday, there is precisely a clear commitment by the European Council to address Ukrainian financial needs for 26 and 27. So this is worth recalling. The European Council remains committed to addressing these financial needs of Ukraine. And it is in this context that the European Council invited the Commission to put forward options. In this regard, President von der Leyen was also very clear in a question that was addressed to her at the European Council press conference, where she said that, of course, there are always other options than using immobilized assets, but the focus is still on the immobilized assets.
I have nothing to add, actually.
You have nothing to add, Balázs? Okay, good. Still on this topic? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Olivier Beau from AFP. As long as the President said there are other options, can we know which these options are, please?
So that is precisely what we will be putting forward in this options paper, and we will be seeing what could be other options, while indeed the focus should remain the use of the immobilized assets. Other questions? Valentina.
Valentina Vasileva, вот так, I would like just to clarify, when we speak about financial needs for Ukraine for next 2 years, what amount of money we're talking about?
Yeah, I think here, as we always said, we are looking at the IMF and the IMF's estimates, and the figure that I've seen that we have in mind for 2026 and 2027 is about $60 billion US dollar. So that is the amount that we are looking at for the next 2 years.
Good. Other questions? Yeah, Stefan.
Yes, Stefan Isar, Europe Table. The Commission expected actually at the summit to get invitation to prepare the legal basis for a proposition. So would you say these conclusions, is this a failure by the Commission? I mean, do you see this as a failure, a result of the summit? As also some member states were actually criticizing the Commission, how it went ahead with this topic. Thank you.
Stefan, listen, I think on this, what we can say is these are uncharted waters, right? It's an area where we have not acted before. So obviously it is a complex matter, and it is obviously legitimate to ask questions, and it's also legitimate that we in the Commission put forward the answers to those questions. And that's what we also see the contribution of the European Council in this sense, to have the possibility to hear what are questions that still need to be answered and what are the concerns. And on that basis, our colleagues are precisely now working on the said options, aiming at replying, addressing any still existing concerns. Yes, Stefan, a follow-up?
Yes, I actually had a chance to follow Bart Wever's press conferences twice, one in Copenhagen and one after the summit, and he came with the same questions, and it seems you didn't give him the answers to his questions. So it's a bit difficult to understand how this couldn't be solved within this, I think, 6 weeks. And if you could say us a bit more about the time frame or timetable, because as I understand the time is short. I mean, you would have to have prepared this until the next summit at the latest. Thank you.
Exactly. We're asked to put options in view of a discussion, and as I take the liberty of also quoting the President of the European Council, Mr. Costa here, where he said, in view of a final decision. So that's precisely the process. It will need to be shortly on the table, these options, so that the European Council can take a decision on that basis. Yeah, here.
One option that could save the reparations loan that was floated in Norway at least, and subsequently commented by Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen and Swedish Europe Minister Jessica Rosenkrantz, is that Norway could be a guarantor for the loan and using the frozen assets. I'm wondering if this is the subject of conversation when the President is visiting the Nordic Council, and what kind of dialogue there is with Norway on participating in some capacity in the reparations loan.
Listen, I cannot confirm to you at this stage whether this will be indeed part of the conversations that the President will be having while in Sweden. Would need to get back to this and to see if this is indeed also part of their discussion on the subject of the reparations loan. Other questions? Yes.
Hi, Janos Schallenbach, I'm on Table Media. On the reparations loan again and the timeline, what I don't get is now you are asked, or you are planning to put forward a paper, you called it before, of options, and then the European Council in December wants to make a final decision. Is that already a decision on a legislative proposal, or are you giving them options to then choose one of the options in the European Council, where when after this, the summit, you will come forward with a legislative proposal? Or will you come forward with a legislative proposal already before the summit?
So, as said, the next step is options. On that basis, a discussion and hopefully a final decision at the next European Council. Jorge.
Hello. Last week, the Prime Minister of Belgium repeated his complaint that the proposal that you have envisioned for the reparations loan is exclusively based on the assets of Euroclear. For the past 3 years, the Commission has said that within EU jurisdiction there are about 210 billion of Russian sovereign assets immobilized. So now, after the discussions from last week, do you commit to finding the remaining assets within the EU and adding them to the proposal, or you still insist that the proposal should be based exclusively on Euroclear? Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Well, first, let me remind you that there has been no proposal by the Commission, right? So there was no proposal. There was a discussion on various options. Whether it would cover only the assets which are immobilized in Belgium or also in other member states remains to be seen. So this is part of the ongoing discussion. Other questions to conclude on this subject?
Thank you, Gabriele Rosano, Il Messaggero Italy. Quickly to follow up on the topic. President Zelensky said that it would be ideal to have the reparation loans already at the beginning of 2026. Are you confident that that timeline is realistic on your side? And secondly, theoretically, help me just to navigate the topic and to understand. Is joint borrowing an option? Theoretically. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll need to be patient and wait for the options that are put forward to see if joint borrowing is one of them. Whether we are confident, we are doing everything we can to indeed address the needs of Ukraine for the next 2 years. And more than that, as said, and I remind everyone here, the European Council reiterated its commitment to address the pressing financial needs of Ukraine in 2026-2027. And we're already late in the midday, but if there's still any other topic, still give the possibility for question to raise on a different topic. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vitaly Sizov. Freedom, it's again for Tama. President of Ukraine Zelensky, during his visit last week, he called to engage Ukraine in a safe program. From his opinion, it's not enough communication or coordination now. And Commissioner for Defense Kubilius, he did the same statement. Do you see some problem to engage Ukraine in this program, and maybe have some data how many companies or how many subjects already could participate? Thank you.
Toma, you're back on stage.
Thank you. If I could put things in context and perspective again first. So we have 19 member states who tentatively received safe loans. Now it's for these member states to determine and to submit national plans by the 30th of November to the European Commission. Now, of course, Ukraine is fully associated. Ukraine was, again, a very big topic at UCO. We just briefly discussed this. So, of course, having Ukraine fully associated and having Ukraine in these safe plans is, of course, essential, because a safe Ukraine means a safe Europe, and a strong Ukraine means a strong European Union. So, of course, we encourage, and this is what Commissioner Kubilius is doing in his bilateral relations, he's, of course, encouraging member states to also use safe in support of Ukraine.
Good. And this brings us to the end of our midday. Thank you for your interest and varied questions, and wish you a very nice afternoon.